You must be pleased by this decision?
Well, thanks, Andrea. And obviously, South East Queenslanders did answer that call, and it's magnificent that we've had no community transmission today. But we really need to make sure that we take everybody on the journey. I mean, 9 hours notice for a 3-day lockdown was a pretty big ask, which Queenslanders did rise to. But the Premier needs to tell us what happens from here on in. Does it mean if we have one more case of community transmission, are we locked down for 14 days? Is it going to be a hard lockdown? We need to have clarity around these lockdowns, because Queenslanders will come on the journey if they actually know what the basis is for that journey.
And she certainly wasn't ruling out plunging back into another lockdown should more cases be uncovered. Now, I want to look at the rules that have been put in place for the next 10 days, particularly around the mask rules. We've seen that, it's not required if you're an indoor office worker, but they are required at gyms whilst exercising. Do you find that these rules, particularly around masks, can be a bit inconsistent and perhaps a bit confusing for people?
Well, I certainly think the directive to wear a mask while you're driving alone in your car over the last 3 days didn't have any basis in health. I understand if you were in a ride share or you're in a taxi, that makes perfect sense for the driver to do that and their passengers. As a nurse, I've worked in theatres for many years, so I'm used to wearing a mask all day, but it's something that most people haven't been used to, and we need to explain to them why it's important to wear a mask. Obviously, if you can't social distance, then you need to wear a mask, not only to protect yourself, but to protect everybody else around you.
Do you believe that these rules strike the right balance the way they are?
I think Queenslanders are happy that we're not continuing into a hard lockdown like we have before. I'm not surprised that the government has come out with these measures. But again, Queenslanders will come on the journey if we actually know what the health advice is that all of these decisions are based on. And we've still yet to see the health advice. We need to have clarity, and particularly for all of those businesses that lost millions over the weekend, who are all expecting people to come to their businesses, people to stay in their hotels, and that all changed on a dime. So Annastacia Palaszczuk can't keep changing the goalposts. She needs to give clarity to Queenslanders. We will come on the journey if we actually understand the basis.
Ros Bates, we've already seen the Northern Territory decide to revoke that hotspot declaration when it comes to those Greater Brisbane region. We are expecting to hear from the Victorian Premier in around half an hour's time, so no doubt he'll be asked about that as well. But I imagine you'd be urging other states and territories to follow suit.
Well, I think we've had no community transmission here. We have dealt with the threat over the last 3 days. But again, we need to know from Annastacia Palaszczuk what it will mean if there's one more case tomorrow. Does that mean we go into hard lockdown? Do we go into 14 days? I mean, it makes it very hard for other states, I guess, to decide whether to not declare us as hotspots anymore if they don't actually know what the basis of the decision is, which is what Queenslanders want to know too.
And finally, we've seen the federal government today batting down calls from the tourism industry in particular to be providing extra support, particularly those concerns around the cliff edge, as some have put it, after JobKeeper wraps up in March. Do you believe that more support should be provided for industries such as the tourism industry?
Well, I think that's up to the Palaszczuk Labor government. The LNP has been calling for extra support for industry for quite some time, particularly when the borders locked down months and months ago. And we all know that the real economic problems will occur once JobKeeper comes off, and that's when state governments need to step up, and the Palaszczuk Labor government needs to announce exactly what they plan to do to help our tourism industry.